we've been talking about the election cycle and November and vice presidential picks for the better part of too long, in my opinion.
Yep.
90 minutes before she got the call, Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris. Senator Kamala Harris from the great state of California, HBCU grad, Howard University graduate. You know, HU. Apparently, her mother's Indian. Her father is Jamaican. So, therefore, she's not a black American to many people, but she black to me. Can't get a cab. Well, nobody's taking a cab anymore. The cops can't tell the difference. So let me just put that out there. Police officers can't tell whether or not your parents were formerly or your ancestors formerly enslaved. They can't tell.
And let me just say, because
enslaved here.
Correct for the record. Jamaica was not a land of free black people, right? I just want to be clear. A lot of people seem to say, well, she traces her roots back to Jamaica, not to slavery. Hello. The island of Jamaica was originally populated by indigenous people who were not Africans. The Africans who arrived in Jamaica, from whence descended folks like Bob Marley, my mother, these are people who were enslaved Africans who were often on the same ships as those enslaved Africans who landed in South Carolina. They just happened to get off at an earlier stop.
Oh, you're saying that the ship from Africa dropped them Africans off different places?
Yes.
And then from the islands to South Carolina, where most of us... Wow, Lurie, man. So they're the same people. Same people just dropped off. Okay. All right, let me ask you this. Before I ask you anything, I want to just make one more point because, I've been watching The Indian Matchmaker on Netflix. Been watching. And also, I've done just a wee bit of study on Gandhi, who hated Africans, by the way. Very, very, very racist things he said about black people from Africa. Gandhi, that great, the great peaceful, nonviolent person who starved himself for justice, did not like Africans. So I'm going to say this. An Indian woman from a country that values whiteness, from a country that has a caste system that categorizes people based on their proximity to whiteness, to marry a black man tells you all you need to know. I mean, this is a point of shame, and you can ask people in the Indian, I watch Indian Matchmaker. The lighter you are, the more valuable you are. For her to marry not just a black man from Jamaica, tells me where she lies in this, this space of race. That was not a choice that I'm sure was met with a lot of yay and partying and, ooh, this is great. You're bringing home a black man. Yippee. No, nowhere in the world did that probably land properly, which also probably tells me that her mom might have been in a caste that was not well valued in India. I'm just going to drop that and we'll just move on. But Lurie, how do you feel about Kamala Harris and the Joe Biden pick?
I got to be honest with you. I mean, the listeners, people who have been following our conversations on this for a while know that Kamala Harris was not my top choice. And guess what? As to quote Yvette Nicole Brown, I will crawl over shredded glass. I'm kidding. Like, at the end of the day, she's highly qualified. She's rightfully within the groupings of people who are being evaluated for this position. This is not an affirmative action pick. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, the Democrats have to choose somebody black because, image and symbols mean something. No, Kamala Harris is worth her weight in many different arenas, regardless of what you think about her chosen career path. She's brilliant. She is highly qualified. She is going to be effective, I think, at mobilizing people to come out and support this campaign, this ticket. I think it was a wise choice. But truthfully, every woman who was in that group of five, I would have technically been okay with. And my top choice, Warren, was not within that group of five. And I was actually okay with that also. I think Kamala would have been a great attorney general. Possibly even a Supreme Court pick. But I think as vice president in a presidency where should Joe Biden ascend to that position, he will likely be a one-term president. I think this was a wise decision. She is more than capable. Now, does this mean that black people are going to get a liberation ticket? No. We still are going to have to organize, mobilize, and engage in ways to press a black-centered agenda. Why? Because when you are the head of empire, you are the head of empire, not black empire. You are the head of an empire, and that's what America really is. And so we are going to have to organize. We're going to have to press the issue. We're going to have to take it to the streets and protest sometimes. Why? Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not lefty progressive folk, and they're not forwarding a lefty progressive agenda. And so Black people who are interested in censoring those things are going to still have to do the work. However, I think our ability to be effective in that space is going to be better than it is under the current administration, where we have an attorney general who is completely content with allowing the Voting Rights Act to not be enforced, completely content with not investigating police brutality, not enforcing consent decrees. So, I think that we need to be clear-eyed about what it is that we're getting with a Democratic ticket that looks like this, but we need to be clear-eyed about what we are going to continue to have should we quibble over reasons as to not support her, reasons that I think largely amount to not much ado about nothing.
And if we're being honest, the vast majority of voters don't vote based on issues. So you can be a one, quote unquote, one issue. It's just an excuse to not pull a lever for somebody. You're not really going to the mat for that one issue, or else you just don't like the ticket, period. So let's be honest. Let's be mature about that as well. 866-801-8255. Because, quite frankly, for most of my adult life, I voted based on personality, whether I liked them, whether the name. When I go into the voting booth, there are several times, and not recently, because now I studied a ballot, because Lurie Favors is on here, and Sunday Civics has taught me when you get the ballot, study, Google search. Google's your friend at this point.
That's right.
So now I know who I'm voting for. But in the past, I was like, Johnson, that sounds like a Black person. Okay.
Jenkins,
you know what I'm saying?
That sounds familiar.
Jenkins, yeah, that sound. Remember when Al Green won because people thought he was the singer?
Right.
So I'm saying, like, if we're being honest, people, which we're going to do here on the Karen Hunter Show, you ain't got to like it, but we're going to tell the truth. And we'll be corrected. If we're wrong, we'll be corrected. But this is an optical illusion, on many levels, because politicians are going to politic. And the hallmark of a good commercial politician is the ability to bend and shapeshift based on the will of the people. So it is incumbent upon us, we the people, to have will. To put forth an agenda and drive it home and not get weary and not get enamored, because the bandwagon is heavy right now. Because what I also know about us is we are quick to jump on a bandwagon. I remember it clearly with Barack Hussein Obama, who Black people were saying wasn't Black enough, mama white, raised in Hawaii, what is this? And then as soon as white people in Iowa said, we vote for this Negro, oh, he's viable. Bandwagon got heavy. Wheels got flattened. It was so many, and I'm seeing the same thing happen with Kamala Harris. She was not my first pick, not because I did not think that she wasn't viable, but because I know us. And y'all, some of y'all, some shady, tiny, insecure, very, very, very not critically thinking, not this audience, of course. You know who I'm talking about, your cousins and relatives who are out there in the Facebook streets, just not very evolved, and y'all are very base. So I knew that Kamala Harris's white husband, Kamala Harris, all of this, y'all were looking for a reason to not, oh, she's too pretty or whatever. Oh, she's fake. She ain't smoked weed with Snoop. Snoop wasn't even out or whatever. And I'm like, all of that doesn't matter. Oh, she locked Black people up. Y'all don't care about that.
Talk about that point for a minute.
Yeah, let's stop. You're a lawyer. Lurie Daniel Favors is here. Afro State of Mind. She's a lawyer. Kamala Harris locked people up.
Kamala Harris was a prosecutor. The prosecutor's job is to prosecute people for their attempted crimes, either actualized or attempted. And we often say that we want to have progressive prosecutors, because if you got to have a prosecutor, and in this system, we got to have a prosecutor, you want prosecutors who are going to be sensitive to certain nuances. You want prosecutors who are going to be aimed at seeking justice as opposed to wins. You want a prosecutor who is going to have the ability to press an agenda that is community-centered, even if that agenda, as a prosecutor, does require you to try cases, get convictions, and as a result of convictions, people do go to jail. That is the job of a prosecutor. We've got Larry Krasner down in Philadelphia, who people are very excited about because he is a progressive prosecutor. We've got Eric Gonzalez in Brooklyn, who is really doing phenomenal things with a progressive agenda as a prosecutor. Now, I am not here to suggest that Kamala Harris was a progressive prosecutor or not. There are a number of reports where people have said, she was, everything but a child of God. And now we're seeing other reports coming out from public defenders who were on the opposite side of the bench, of the trials from her, saying, listen, Yeah, she was a prosecutor, but she started programs for young mothers. She started programs for reentry programs. She had a truancy program, but the reality is only one mom actually suffered any criminal harm, and as a result of that, they were able to work out a settlement. Most people were able to, because their children had been truant 55, 60, 75 days out of the year, as a result of the program, they're no longer truant. So we have to be clear. We are not talking about electing Martin Luther King. Right? We're talking about somebody who was a prosecutor whose job was to enforce laws. And I'm about to say something that might be a little controversial. But you and I have had conversations about my home, which is on a block. That is not the best block in the world to live on. Now, we're doing a lot of work to try to make that block better, but the reality is there are people on my block who feel safer with a police car outside because there are certain types of crimes that do happen. There are certain black people who are committing crimes. Now, of course, there are reasons, and they didn't have a father, and they come from economically challenged backgrounds, or their parenting life. There are reasons for that, but the reality is, if you're driving reverse down our block, and you're shooting at someone who's running towards you, and you're hitting cars on the way, going wrong way down a wrong way street, and your 36 shots come out, and I'm literally talking about something that has happened on my block. You want to have a system that can hold people accountable. I'm not saying that this is the only system we have. I believe we should reimagine the criminal justice system. However, this is the system that we have. So when we talk about, her record as a prosecutor, let's be fair, and I'm talking to myself as well because I am not pro-prosecution. Y'all know me by now. But at the end of the day, the system we have does require people who serve in that role. And while she was in that role, there is at least reason for us to be balanced in our assessment of the actions that she took. Because it certainly simply was not a one-sided perspective. So I just think we need to acknowledge that as this bandwagon is growing and as them wheels are about to pop off, because it can't hold the weight of the people who are new to the party.
Lurie Daniel Favors, Afro State of Mind. We are no stranger to talk about controversial things, so I'm going to double down on what you just said. Who among us is okay with crime in their neighborhood? Raise your hand and call me, 866-801-8255. What should happen to the person that broke in your car? What should happen to the person that broke into your home? What should happen to the person that did a drive-by and accidentally shot a relative of yours? What should happen to them in this great world? Now, the criminal justice system has never been justice for us. It's never been that. But how does it get fixed? Right? Do we not have a system by which the person that is in your community that is wreaking havoc, like I called the cops, on the drug dealer that was in my neighborhood and confronted him personally, and then said when the cops come, I called them, and they did gather him up, and he was never to be seen on that block again. I don't know what happened to him, and when I come home and there's someone nodding on my front steps from the drugs that he just sold next door, I got a problem with that. And who should have to walk past crack vials or heroin needles when you work hard and come home and you have children? Like, we need to be able to have these conversations like adults.
We do.
And at the end of the day, I'd rather have a Kamala Harris sitting in that seat as a prosecutor than a Bill Barr who could give a damn about you and your black life.
Or Rudy
for real.
Giuliani.
Or Rudy Giuliani. Or what's the Chris Christie.
Right.
All right. So two things can be true. Kamala Harris locked up some black people, and she could also be a great vice president. And I think that's really the issue. And if we're looking collectively, which we rarely do, but today is collective work. So we need to start to understand. And Lurie, you said this before. Does it bring us closer to freedom or further away? So I've been committed. Right. I said this yesterday. I'm not going to say anything negative about Kamala Harris until November 4th and Joe Biden. Until November 4th. I'm going to wait. And then we're going to have an ask. And then we're going to have a drumbeat of but I'm not going to litigate what your past was because we all have one. Okay? We all have one. We all have done things that we wish we had not. Now, do we give people an opportunity to do better? And I think she wanted to be president of the United States. And so she addressed a lot of these things. And I think a lot of us are repeating talking points that are generated by an algorithm that's sole purpose is for us to be divided. Do you want to participate in that? Or do you want to participate in actual freedom? Now, for everyone who says, we've been here before, at some point, Chicken Little cried that the sky was falling and it actually fell. At some point, I'm not waiting for the sky to fall. We already see it. It's lowering down. We already are like, oh, hey, what's happening? How many people are dead? what's going on in our neighborhoods.
Right.
I mean, like the sky is falling, literally. And if you happen to be one of the people who have the luxury to not acknowledge that, God bless you. But Black America, because when America has a cold, Black America has COVID-19.
That's right.
This is not good. 866-801-8255. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that the Biden-Harris ticket wins because Trump-Pence is not tenable. Trump, what's her name? Nimrata Haley. That's because I think he might pull something like that to try to, because that's how they do. You put a black person, I'm gonna do. You put a woman, I'm gonna put a woman. You put an Indian woman, I'm gonna put a real Indian woman. A white facing Indian woman. Yes, I'm sure. What's the Indian population think about this? 866-801-8255. Are you identifying? Because there was, I think Lamont tweeted out something like Barack Obama, everybody tried to blackify him, even though he was even further away from blackness than Kamala Harris. But for some reason, she's not black enough. That's a fact. That is an absolute genetic fact. Yeah. Let's go. So tell me what else you're thinking about this before we go to the phones.
I think it's this, you said something just a minute ago, and I feel like one of the things that we should learn from the Barack Obama, Joe Biden years is that we were so giddy and excited to see Black Camelot. We saw Michelle, and it wasn't a light-skinned, you couldn't racially ambiguous Michelle. She was a sister, right? A sister with a grandmama raising two black girls who looked and sounded and felt to us authentically black. And I think a lot of people, and I'm going to say a lot of people because I myself was very critical and got very much grief for criticizing the Barack Obama campaign early on. But I think a lot of people were so caught up in the beauty of it and the symbolism of it that we made some really functional, critical mistakes. One of the primary mistakes being not having a cohesive agenda that we were willing to press him to the mat to execute on our behalf. And what always struck me about that is that in real time, we saw how the LGBT community did not take that route. We saw how the Dreamers community did not take that route. They had their agenda. They said, great, it's beautiful, so much symbolism, means so much. Now, here's what we want, please, and thank you. Oh, and if you don't give it to us, we're going to protest. We're going to march. We're going to do petitions. We're going to take out ads. We're going to sit on the steps of the Supreme Court. We're going to sit on the steps. We're going to do all the things that we would typically do to effectuate an agenda because we are not so swayed and enamored with the beauty of Black Camelot that we are not going to be effective. And I think that was a fundamental failing within Black organizing politics. And yes, there were people who, who made efforts, but as a collective, we did not press him. And he told us very clearly, I am not the president of Black America. I'm the president of America. You want me to do something? Make me do it. Some people got offended by that, but that's just electoral politics. If you want the person who is at the head of the ticket or who is your elected official to do something, you have to organize the people pressure, not just to force them to do it, but to give them cover so that when they do execute your agenda, they can say, well, masses of people were protesting. Did you see the Dreamers? Of course they're going to get DACA. Did you see the LGBT community? Of course we're going to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They are organizing the masses and they're shifting public policy and opinion. We have to be able to now do that same thing with the Biden-Harris ticket. I don't think we'll fall sway to that in the way we did before. It's a slightly different type of Camelot. But we just have to be very clear that this is the time to get busy. And while we're not being so critical of them that they end up not winning on November 3rd, this is the agenda building time. If you have not been a part of organizations that are building an agenda, this is the time to be doing that now.
So I'm going to use this platform to start to identify those organizing outlets. And Lurie, of course, you're going to help. And we're going to start putting together, let's do 3 to 5 items that must be on an agenda. I think reparations should definitely be what is the plan for this repair, for this healing. And we've been talking about this from the beginning. I think that should be at the top of the list. But what else should be on there? And November 4th, we should also start looking at if you want a third party. If it's the Green Party, who are the candidates? Let's start identifying. So I'm tired of hearing lesser of two evils, but you haven't done a damn thing in the last 4 years to give us another option. Let's start November 4th. Those of you out there who are complaining right now, vote, and then let's get busy. 866-801-8255. And I have faith that we're nimble enough to do all of these things. I think we can walk and chew gum. I think we can.
Indeed.